guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Callie and today I am going to talk to you about my top 15 books of 2020. Making this list was extremely difficult, so these will be presented in no particular order. I had a hard enough time putting 15 books on this list and not 30. So I decided to not put them in ranking. So I'm just gonna kind of go through how they ended up in this stack and go from there, because these are just some of my favorite books that I read in 2020. And given how this year has gone, I hope that you guys either pick these up or have enjoyed them yourselves. Either or. I think these books were great character-wise, writing-wise, plot-wise, enjoyment factor-wise, and not all of them are fantasy. Thank you very much. There is, I don't know, but there's at least one contemporary on this list. So I got that going for me, and we're not going to talk about how it has a magical realism aspect to it, but it's okay. So, without further ado, I am going to start off with the obvious one, and that is Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. This is her adult fantasy debut, where we follow Bryce after her best friends are brutally murdered and she comes home and finds their bodies. She teams up with an angel named Hunt to try and solve the mystery and why her friends died. This is so much more than that. It has intrigue, mystery. We're also in a modern day fae world. Bryce is a half fae, but she also has like a cell phone and FaceTimes with her mom, and she works as a librarian, and she has a little fire spirit that's like one of her best friends. And a lot of the aspects of integrating from our typical medieval fae worlds and making it modern was so well done, and I love the world building. The world building is a lot. This is like an 800-900 page book, but it is a phenomenal book, and I highly, highly recommend it if you love fantasy, if you love mystery, if you love romance, if you love anything Sarah J. Maas. Highly recommend this book. Next on this list is actually a sequel. Well, technically it's the 6th book in a series. That is Immortal Reign by Morgan Rhodes. This is the 6th book in the Fallen Kingdom series. I finished this series this year, and I absolutely loved every single step of the way, but Immortal Reign, which is our big finale book, was definitely by far my favorite. Everything was built up and explained wonderfully in this grand finale. We got so much closure from this book, and I think that the way that it ended, I understand the ending, and I appreciate and respect how Morgan Rhodes decided to end this series. And this is a series following several different characters in this mythical world of Mythica. And it is basically like Game of Thrones without the creepy incest and more YA content. This is an older YA series, but if you love fantasy, medieval, knights in shining armors, getting concerned about your favorite characters dying, highly recommend this series by Morgan Rhodes. It is so well done, and all of the characters are developed beautifully. They go through several different types of character arcs, and we watch them grow into their own, and I love every aspect of it. Next up, I have Bone Crier's Moon by Kathryn Purdie. This is the start to a magical duology where there are these things called bone criers, these women, and in order to be a fully fledged bone crier, they have to summon their soulmate and kill them. Now, Sebastian, on the other hand, watched his father get killed by a bone crier, so knows their kind of little secrets. And his goal in life is to kill a bone crier before she has the chance to murder another man. And guess who shows up when our main character calls her soulmate? Sebastian. And thus our beautiful enemies to lovers. Plot ensues, but it is so much more. The way that the magic works, these bone criers are able to kill animals and then with their bones create talismans that give them different powers. Our main character has a shark one, and it gives her agility, it gives her being able to see in the dark, and it gives her heightened sense of smell. So there's different little things, and you can mix and match. I think you can have up to like 3 talismans at a time, And I just love these characters. The banter was great. We have a phenomenal crew of side characters, and one of those side characters, our main bone crier girl, Elise, her best friend is one of the best side characters I've ever seen and read about, and she makes her debut on the cover of the sequel, which is one of my most anticipated books for 2021. This is just a fun-filled enemies to lovers adventure that I would highly recommend. I'm gonna say highly recommend 15 times. It's gonna happen. Next up, I have Ace of Shades by Amanda Foody. This is a almost Victorian era series about a girl who goes to Sin City to try and find her guardian. And when she runs into all of these problems, she ends up running into a gang leader, Levi, who is in so much debt that he might actually get killed for it. And we have this looming shadow game, which is this magical game where you have to basically run for your life or die if you are invited to play this game. So we follow our two main characters, En and Levi, as they try and work together to get their own goals and defeat and not get invited to this shadow game, all while learning different things about their own pasts and understanding the past of this city. I think this world was so well developed. The characters are extremely dynamic, and it is just such a fast-paced, it's not a heist story, but it feels like a heist story because you're in that casino heisty atmosphere. And it's so well done, and I am very, very excited to finish out the series early next year. Next, I have my first non-fantasy, and that is Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I've been reading Riley Sager for a couple of years now, and I love their stories. It is always a different type of horror-scape, and he breaks it down into its bare bones and builds it back up in such a unique manner. In this one, it is very much like Haunting of Hill House or The Haunting of Bly Manor, where we have this haunted house. This family, Maggie and her parents, were in this house for 21 days, and then they mysteriously just packed up and left everything. Her dad wrote a book about this entire book, and Maggie for her entire life thought he lied about everything. And she goes back to this house after he passes away to try and figure out what he lied about and why he lied about it. And she is met with a lot of different creepy things that happen throughout this house. I was on the edge of my seat this entire book. Every single Riley Sager book I have read, I have had to read in one sitting because I just need answers, and I can't put it down. They are so engrossing and so much fun. And what I really like about Riley Sager's books are that there's so many things that I should have noticed in the beginning or in different scenes, which is so interesting. And why I love these books is because I can go back and reread them and be like, I see what you did there. If you like thrillers, horror, anything by Riley Sager, I would highly, highly recommend. So the next ones are actually 2 books, and that is because it is books 1 and 2 of the Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. So we have Skyward and Starsight. These are a series about a girl named Spencer who longs to go to flight school, but because her father was deemed a coward and was killed, she finds a lot of pushback in that aspect. So she ends up being able to talk her way into flight school and being able to fight back the aliens that are attacking they're not on Earth, they're on this like other planet. And they're constantly being attacked by aliens, and all Spencer wants to do is defeat the aliens and figure out why they're keeping them trapped on this planet. And we learn so much about the world, and the world expands tenfold in Starsight, which is one of the reasons I love both these books, and I gave them both 5 stars. And I am so ready for book 3 to come out next year, because I need more as to what's going on in this. Next is another sequel, and that is Aurora Burning by Amie, Kaufman, and Jay Kristoff. This is the second book to the Aurora Rising series, and it is a phenomenal series about this girl, Ori, who was on her way to a planet and then got trapped in space, and 200 years later is awoken with a white streak in her hair and being able to see things that she wasn't able to see before. And we also have this crew that is just sort of thrown together. We don't think that they should mesh, but they do mesh, and it is a wonderful story. We get each of the perspectives of each of the crewmates, and we have a couple of aliens, we have a couple of different kind of political aspects going on within the book, and everything about it is amazing. And this sequel is one of the best second books I have ever read. I threw this book across my room when I was reading it because I was that upset, and I need the cover and the title and just the third book in general. I need it. I'm pre-ordering the crap out of that when it's announced, because this series is everything, and I've been on a big sci-fi kick lately, and this helped. Or didn't help, and so did those two. The sci-fi is real. All right, and for another one that is not fantasy or sci-fi, and that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. We read this early in 2020, and this follows Evelyn Hugo, who is finally telling her truth. And she is finally telling it to this little journalist who is not very well known, and we finally get to learn why there were 7 husbands for Evelyn Hugo. And it was such a heartbreaking story about old Hollywood and the standards of beauty and the standards of women and the standards of people in general in the 50s, old 50s Hollywood atmosphere. And this was such a beautiful story. I cried. It is a phenomenal book. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. I actually read Daisy Jones and the Six of hers first, and that's what made me want to read this book, just because her writing was so beautiful and I loved it, and I loved the way that she was able to capture. I wanted to find Evelyn Hugo's movies. I needed to watch those scenes that they talked about, and there were so many things. It felt so tangible and real, and I loved that Taylor Jenkins Reid was able to accomplish that.